So this is a short video discussing critical perspectives and how to use that when reading and analyzing a literary text. So very few people go to analyze a text and decide which critical perspective they're going to use. This is something that is usually discovered the more times you read a text, the more times you think about it, and the more times you're trying to uncover the deeper meaning behind why the text was written. But because we've been analyzing text for many years, people have found that there's some patterns in the way we can break down and explain text for their deeper meanings. One thing that a student can do is look at it through one of the critical perspectives. So one critical perspective that's very common to use is the biographical criticism. And when you start to analyze a text based off of biographical criticism, what you do is you start to look up who the author is and what their biography is to see the overlaps between their real life and the fictional story that you're reading. And sometimes when you do that, you start to understand and uncover a deeper meaning in the text, because by understanding who the author is and what they've lived through, you can understand what message they're trying to portray to their audience. Another big critical perspective, and you probably have done this when you think back on some of your other English classes, is to analyze it through a formalism perspective. And when you look at a text through kind of that formalism lens, you're looking at it like an English teacher. You're approaching the text and trying to decide, what did the author do within their writing craft to create the story, the message, the text that you're reading on the page. When you start looking at and analyzing things based off of the formalism criticism, you're going to be looking at the line length or the rhythm or the figurative language and how that was specifically used by the author as a tool to carry on a deeper meaning. Psychoanalytical criticism is one that we probably won't use a whole lot in this class, but when you start to analyze based off of a psychoanalytical criticism, you're trying to look for specific things in your text or your story that symbolize something larger. It's almost like you're interpreting a dream, and you may see the sun, but the sun represents something else. Or you may see a car or a road, but you know that it is a literal car and a road, but it also means something bigger and deeper, maybe in the message of life. Archetypal criticism is one that we kind of default to a good bit because there are things in literature that reappear. We have kind of these stereotypes of a hero or of the devil, and you're going to see those signs coming through often. And when you start to notice and analyze a text based off of these, you're then using the archetypal criticism. Feminist criticism is one that you're probably going to use a good bit just because of the ages of some of the stories that we're reading. But when you analyze something based off of the feminist criticism, what you're looking at is how is society at that time defining the role of a woman. And with a lot of things, especially when we consider back in history, we're looking at how a woman is defined or maybe oppressed, because all that clues into what is the woman's self-worth and how they are viewed and valued within their own society that they live in. Similarly, gender theory, when you're analyzing a text through gender theory, you're looking at how society or that culture within the story that's being created defines men and women. So what is considered a manly role? What is considered an acceptable behavior amongst men in that culture? And the same with females. What does it mean to be a woman in this time period? Or how can we define a woman as being successful and living the correct life according to the roles of society in that culture? Marxist criticism goes right on into economics And it is looking at how within a story we're seeing the different levels of society. You kind of think about the bourgeoisie, or how we define the have and the have-nots. A lot of times as something is being looked at through Marxist criticism, we start to kind of lean into some political beliefs that follow kind of the Marxist theme, but it's the whole idea of how money and society divides people amongst the culture, and people are finding self-worth based off of what group they belong in. And then last, we kind of look at historical criticism and new historicism, and I'm going to kind of lump those together. But as we look at this criticism, we're looking at what has happened in history during that time period and how that is affecting what we're reading in the story. So as you're analyzing something through that perspective, you're having to do research to understand what's going on then, so you can understand what message is being expressed. And sometimes that's a little difficult because you want to look at it through the lens of now, through, you know, a 2021 goggle or a 2020 goggle. But you have to understand what's happening in the culture in the moment in order to understand what bigger message the author may be trying to express, to describe, to explain, or even to challenge. So as you go through critical perspectives, remember, you are never going to address this specifically. So nowhere in a discussion board or an outline or a paper will you say something along the lines of, I will now be analyzing Cinderella based off of a feminist criticism. Instead, you think about a feminist criticism will want you to understand the role of a woman based off of what you read, and you create your ideas, your thesis statements, your topic sentences, whatever it is you may need to speak directly to what's being said. Anyone who understands critical perspectives will know which one you're using without ever having to name it. Also, this is kind of, there's 100 different ways to skin the cat. That sounds like a horrible phrase, but as you're going through and analyzing a text, some people just are going to want to read the text once, twice, maybe 3 times, and start picking apart little details that interest them to find an analysis. That will inevitably get you to a critical perspective, but you're letting the text lead you. Other people would rather look at the list of critical perspectives, kind of pick a zone of what they want to look at, and then go read the text 1, 2, maybe 3 times to analyze it with a specific narrowed focus. It is up to you as to how you want to go about analyzing things, and I want to make sure you realize there's no right or wrong way to do it. For some of you, you may find with the first text we analyze, it's easiest to do it one way. And as we move through the course and you're using different texts, different strategies, different writing prompts, you may find that you flip-flop back and forth between looking at critical perspectives first or knowing that the text will lead you to it. It's all in what works best for you as you're trying to make meaning of what we read. Remember that inspiration for every writing piece could be different. So even if you find you really love analyzing things on gender theory, you may not be able to do that for every text throughout the entire course. Authors are going to lean into things that are important to them. They're going to express messages that they feel like the culture around them needs to understand and value and know. And so you'll find some texts lend themselves easier to be analyzed from one versus the other. As always, I'm here, so reach out as you have questions or you want to clarify some ideas. And I'm looking forward to seeing what you do as we analyze and read in this semester.